What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. In this video, we are going to be diving into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin, The Lost Years, issue number 2. And what we saw from issue number 1 is that this story is taking place in 2 different time periods. The first is in the past, with Michelangelo losing his father and brothers in the war with the Foot Clan. He decided to isolate himself away in the mountains of Japan. But the grieving hero's solace was rudely interrupted when a warlord known as Deathworm had brought chaos to the quiet countryside. Because no matter where he goes, trouble always follows. And then in present day, Casey Marie Jones is struggling with the challenge of raising a new generation of turtles as the successors for the ninja heritage. So make sure you guys have subscribed to the channel, make sure that you like this video, and with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright gang, so as we dive into issue number 2, we are picking up with our 4 turtles. These turtles, still being very young in age, right now they are cleaning the dojo. And while they think that they are left unattended to do this, Casey Marie is watching from the shadows. She wants to see how they work together. This is where we see that Odin drops a glass. Going to get a drink of water, he drops it, and it shatters all over the floor. And so as Casey Marie watches all of this unfold, she really just wants to see how they handle the situation, with Odin asking each of his siblings which one will come and help him. Yi is unwilling to do so because his job is to wipe everything down, believing that he can only wipe things down and he can do nothing more. Moja having her music in, she gets tapped on the shoulder and she tells Odin that she is too busy. The reason that Odin is asking for everybody's help is because he is scared of sharp things. With glass all over the floor, he's a little bit terrified to do this. Turning to Uno, nobody is willing to help out Odin. And with Casey seeing enough of this conversation, she walks down to the dojo. Odin apologizing and sniffling about the fact that he broke this glass. Worried that she would be very mad, she lets him know that she's not mad, but this is a great opportunity for a lesson. Sitting all of them down and telling them the tale of her father. The story starting off with Master Splinter sending all of them away on an important mission to stop the Foot Clan from stealing stuff that didn't belong to them. Like always, Leo was in charge. And just when he was going to give the order to grab the bad guys, that's when Casey saw something else. He saw some other bad guys getting ready to be mean to a poor old lady. Obviously, Casey wanted to help the lady. At first, the turtles, they didn't want to go. They were supposed to be stopping the Foot Clan like Master Splinter had told them to do. But Casey didn't listen and he went anyway. Even though the turtles knew that this would mess up their mission against the Foot, the turtles followed. They helped Casey stop the other guys and save that poor lady. They did this because it was the right thing to do. And Casey Marie thinks about this story a lot. The time that she helped Grandma April stop this city from flooding, when really she wanted to be helping her sensei fight the Foot. And we saw that transpire in TMNT, The Last Ronin. But she lets the little turtles know that sometimes we just get caught up in what we think we're supposed to be doing, or what we want to be doing. That they ignore everything that they should be doing, like helping out one of your teammates when they are in trouble. And so with that, we see all the turtles helping clean up this mess. Now this is what takes us to the Michelangelo part of the story. We pick up in the past and we have Mikey, who is fighting a bunch of Deathworm thugs. And while all of these guys are shouting at him, shouting in Korean, Mikey's Korean is a little bit bad, but it's not bad enough to understand what they are saying. It is always the same thing: kill the monster. But as he looks around this bar, he has totally exposed himself. He spent weeks hiding in plain sight with not a single issue, but now he is blowing his cover over a barroom brawl. He was really hoping that this would be quick and quiet, but obviously that's not the case. To understand how Mikey got to this point, we have to traverse time just a little bit, because it has been nearly 3 years since that day where those villagers were attacked, where that dying old man in the burning village told him to run away from the psychopath known as Deathworm and his army of thugs. It has been 3 years since the ghost of his brothers suddenly showed up out of nowhere and telling him the same thing. Now at this point, Mikey doesn't understand if these are actually the ghosts of his brothers or he has just taken too many hits to the noggin. Not sure if this is insanity or concussion. He wasn't stupid enough to believe that he was in any shape to take on another fight right then. And so with no other plan, he decides it is time to get out of Dodge. He started heading south towards the Japanese mainland. Little did he know that another day would turn into days, then into months, and then into years. In the beginning, he had kept to the woods and forest as much as possible, foraging for mushrooms and wild plants to survive. Donatella would be there to help him make sure that he is eating the right and safe plants. But he does think to himself that maybe he knew this all along from all the years he spent surviving in the mountains. Regardless, the constant jabbering of his dead companions is making it hard to separate past from present, reality from delusion. Whether he was crazy or concussed, it really didn't seem like his brothers were in any hurry to go away. And as lonely as he was in no hurry to let them go. As he makes his way to the coastline, ahead of him is the Sea of China. Beyond that is the mainland. And what is past that is a dark reckoning. Without looking back, Mikey begins to swim. Once he got to the mainland, he continued south, using the western coastline as a compass. He slept during the day and he hiked at night. This was a very long and a very slow trek. He still wasn't sure exactly where he was going to be going. By the time that he had reached the Monument of Remembrance, his brothers had finally had enough. They told him that the sun was setting and they know what this means. It is time for more pointless walking. The problem with this is his brothers think he has no solid plan. There has been no sign of Deathworm or his goons since they had left. So either they lost them or they just don't care anymore. So they pose the question, if they are not running from them, what exactly are they doing? This is where Mikey kinda loses it for a moment, because he tells them that they aren't doing anything. This is all him. All 3 of them are dead, as the argument ensues with his brothers, each of them pointing a finger, blaming one another for things that have happened. But they all know that this war was going to happen regardless. Even if Raphael had never charged in and did what he did to really kick off this war, it was all brewing on the surface. This was always the inevitable outcome. It always came down to the last man or the last mutant standing. The thing about that is there are still 2 standing. The grandson of Shredder and Mikey. He is the last of his family and Mikey is the last of his. That means that Mikey is the only one that can end all of this. And deep down, he always knew that this is where he was going. He is headed back to New York City. To stand or fall, it does not matter. All of this is going to finally end. And so, having a plan, he heads out. Vengeance for his family awaited him in New York. But before he heads out, Leonardo had reminded him of how rusty his fighting skills have become, suggesting that they make a stop at a secret location to do some training on an island that their father had written about inside of his journal. With Mikey making it to the port city, he jumps onto a cruise ferry, bound for Russia via Korea. He had snuck on board and he made his way through the seas. But it didn't take long for someone to find him out. And the unlikely possibility has become true. Deathworm's goons have finally caught up to him. At first, they were just picking on a random stranger. But once they see that it was a turtle, They knew exactly what to do with this guy as they tried to take him into the boss. We see Mikey smash these guys' face in and he jumps off the boat. The swim to the island was way more difficult than he had actually anticipated. He is surprised that he didn't drown. But when he arrives on shore, this is where he is greeted by a man speaking in Japanese. Before Mikey can say anything, we see him pass out. Waking up a little bit later, we have Master Yip, who is taking care of him, giving him some soup, making sure that he is warm. This is Master Yip, the elite sensei that he has been seeking out, the one that was trained by Master Splinter. And while Mikey was sleeping, he was talking so much in his sleep, so much that Master Yip pretty much knows everything that he needs to know about this turtle. And so with Mikey healing up and getting outside, this is where he starts to get into his training. It starts by simply scrubbing the floors, and then it goes into learning all of the techniques that Master Yip has to teach him. When their training had first begun, he was a little bit concerned on how soft Master Yip might be, but after Master Yip knocked one right across his face, he never questioned him again. Eventually, they moved on to weapons. Days had turned into months. Training became routine, but never mundane. Day after day, he slowly began to understand why his father had written so highly about Master Yip in his journal. He really was the elite sensei. For more than 2.5 years, he was always busy. He was never alone, training day in and day out, his brother's ghost still plaguing him. But eventually his training was complete, and it was time for him to head back west to New York City and do some redemption. But Master Yip threw one last curveball before he left, telling him that he understands the journey that he is on. When Master Splinter came to train with him, he too held a burning desire for revenge against the enemies of their family. He had made it his life's purpose to go out and stop them, to see through his quest for vengeance. And so Master Yip trained him just like he trained Mikey, like he trains all of his students, to first win the battle that you wage within inside yourself before embarking on any bloody vendettas against others. But he does have one question. Can you honorably rush off to face one enemy when you fearfully retreat from another? He is speaking on Deathworm, telling Mikey that Deathworm must be confronted. And Mikey knows this to be true. He knows this in the depths of his heart. And so as he rows away, he knows that he must go take him down. Before he can return home to New York City, he must find Deathworm and take him out. And so when he gets to the unified Korean Republic, he learned some very important things over the next couple of days. He blended in. He made sure that nobody saw him. But there is also another thing that he figured out. There had been an earthquake in China. This one was a 9.6 magnitude. The destruction took out a lot of Chinese nuclear facilities, turning half of this country into an irradiated wasteland. The Chinese government had pretty much collapsed overnight, and anybody that was in control, they were really starting to make this country look like North Korea was. The unification with South Korea had followed very quickly. The most important thing that he had learned is that Deathworm's thugs, his army, has caused all kinds of problems. According to the papers, he was last seen in the former DMZ. That's what takes him to Town 38, the town named after the 38th parallel. In this place, it was hard to tell where the crime started and the law began, but it wasn't hard to see why this place was called the Wild West of the East. He knew that finding Deathworm here wasn't going to be easy. Either everybody was paid off or nobody would say a single word. With him sleeping on the streets, not having a hot meal, he begins selling items off. He sold half of his warrior's soul just so that he could have some food and a place to rest his head. But while he's in this bar, he overhears some conversation. One of the guys playing pool happens to have a Deathworm tattoo. Seeing this, he takes his opportunity. He goes over to them, he picks a fight with them, Taking off his facial disguise, this is where they see who he is. And so the fight breaks out. He tries to make it quick. He tries to make it quiet. One of the thugs shooting off a gun, this is anything but quiet. He knows that he still needs answers. And so the guy with the tattoo, he brings him down to the ground. He takes that broken bottle from him and he threatens him. This thug lets us know that Deathworm has gone to Mongolia. He pops the smoke and he gets out of here. He breaks into a car, he hotwires it, and he takes off down the road. Headed north to Mongolia, he may not have a plan, but he knows what he must do. Find Deathworm, track him down, and take him down. And then they head for New York City. He has no other choice. He is honor bound to do this. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. You know, I've been thinking about this comic a lot lately because of a couple reasons. The first reason, the first run of this, my videos were getting, I don't know, 40,000, 50,000, 23,000 views. Just absolutely astronomical views for our channel. But when it comes to the last issue, I think it only got 5,000 or 6,000 views, which I must say is relatively disappointing considering how big the last series was. And so I've been trying to puzzle my mind and figure out why people are not as interested in this series as they are in the last. Now, if we set aside the fact that a lot of people just aren't happy with the idea of Casey Marie coming in and being the sensei for these 4 new turtles, I've seen people call it woke or whatever else you want to call it. I think it's absolutely ridiculous notion to say that Kevin Eastman, the man who created Ninja Turtles, that created this storyline, is somehow being woke by doing what he wants with his characters. Mind you, this is also the Ronin-verse, so it is not necessarily connected in the main continuity. This is him doing what he wants to do. And if people have a problem with Casey Marie, if they have a problem with female turtles, I do want to remind people of Venus. Venus was a character that existed and has existed before the word woke was a common used word in our vocabulary in current society, at least in the contents that woke is used nowadays. And while Venus wasn't super successful, we know that Kevin Eastman has always wanted to have this female version, and so it's cool to see him doing what he wants to do with his characters. But another reason I think that this isn't as successful with fans is this is the in-between stories, the lost years, the years that sat there and really were just Mikey trying to figure out what he's going to do now that he has lost all of his family. But my conclusion to all of this is that this story, the lost years, I think these should have came first. If they had done this series first and then led into the Last Ronin, I think that would have been much more impactful, and I think you would have been able to hold on to readers throughout the entire series, both of these little mini-series. If you had showed us the Lost Years first, you showed us all of the build-up that eventually leads him to New York City, and then his ultimate battle with Shredder's grandson. I think that is the way that they should have done it. Maybe Kevin Eastman was concerned that The Last Ronin wasn't going to be as successful as it was, and so they decided to do The Last Ronin, and once it was successful, they decided to try and continue the success on with doing the Lost Years. It would have been nicer to see them given 10 issues to be able to tell this entire story, starting with the Lost Years in the first 5 issues, and the next 5 issues, the last 5 issues, which would lead to the ultimate demise of our turtles, or at least our original turtles. And then Casey Marie training these new turtles could have been their own story altogether. But even with all that being said, I am 100% in support of this comic. I love it. I think it is awesome. I'm really excited to see what is going to happen with Casey Marie and these new turtles. But let me know your thoughts, let me know your theories. If you would like to get completely caught up on everything going on with this series, be sure to check out the link in my description as well as the top of this video. It will get you completely caught up on everything going on with The Last Ronin. If you would like to support the channel, you can always do so by joining the channel membership, much like Patreon having multiple different tiers, from $1 to $50. From loyalty badges to getting free comics every single month. Not only does this help out the channel tremendously, but you are getting tons of perks in the process. If you are unable to do that, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like this video, hit that notification bell, and with that being said, until the next breakdown.